Well, hello and welcome to Psychic Catchup. And today I'm Kerry Waring, your host, and today I'm chatting with Renata Daniel from Newcastle Ghost Tours. Welcome, Renata.
Hi, how are you and how are all your listeners? I hope they're all well.
I'm sure they are. So I know, we've known each other for, quite a few years now.
Forever, for an eternity.
And I know, when I read your bio that you sent through, I was like, oh my God, how busy is this lady? So
I know.
Yeah, so
hey, look, Kerry, it hasn't happened overnight, and you know that. You know that it takes a long, long time to get to a level of busy.
Of course it does. And so I just want to tell people a little bit about you and a little bit about, I guess, all that you get up to in this little spooky life of yours. So Renata operates Newcastle Ghost Tours, which is going into its 9th year, which is pretty phenomenal. So good on you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep, and you've been reading tarot for over 20 years and you're a qualified counsellor, physiotherapist and Reiki healer.
That's it, yep.
Yeah, okay. And so you've been using your mediumship abilities more than ever as you continue to develop your ghost tours, your private investigations, and you are one half of the Seance Sisters running the Seance Parlour, providing a hands-on interaction with spirit, communicating in the 1800 style of table tipping, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute.
Yep, okay.
And you facilitate groups, workshops in psychic development, paranormal investigations and meditation. So, Renata, tell us, how did you get into your ghost tours and how did you get into all that you do, I guess? What brought you to it?
Well, Kerry, I have you to blame for the ghost tours because it was a very long time ago, well over probably about 12 years, I would say now, if I go back that far, where I stumbled upon a tour that you were doing at the Civic Theatre. And you actually were the catalyst for me to go into ghost tours. At that particular stage, I was running a very small healing centre in Newcastle with a business partner of mine, and we were looking at other ways of bringing business into our business so that we could actually pay the bills. And I attended your tour at the Civic Theatre, and a little voice next to me said, "Why don't you do this in Newcastle? No one's doing it." And gee, if that little voice could have told me how complicated it was going to be and how much work it was going to be, maybe I wouldn't have put myself into that situation so enthusiastically. But I did, and I am so very, very glad that I did. And I publicly thank you for that prod in the back for actually sending me down that path.
Oh, no, thank you. You're welcome. And if I let you in on a little secret, there's been quite a few things in my career where I've been inspired by spirit to actually put them together. And that tour at the Civic Theatre in Newcastle was one of them.
Oh, wow.
And in hindsight, because I never ever felt drawn to do another one, I know in hindsight that it's spirit's way of bringing the idea, bringing the inspiration to the person who's actually meant to own it. So, so I know that was spirit working, through me for you. And I'm so great that 9 years later, you're still going.
Yes. And as we know, this is a really difficult field to stay in, especially in Australia, where it's still sort of just growing and people are getting used to the whole idea of this really intimate connection with spirit and the way that it works around us. So we are still really the pioneers of all of this in Australia, I think, from that perspective. Wouldn't you think, Kerry?
Oh, absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about that. How has running the ghost tours been for your mediumship, and what are a couple of things that you've learnt over the last 9 years?
Oh, well, wow. If I look at my own progress over the last 9 years, it's been phenomenal. And of course, with all of these things, the more you do them, the more you put yourself into the environment where you're tuning in, the better you are at your craft. And so this is really something that everyone needs to do hands-on and needs to have continual practice in, just to hone their own skills and just also to get verification that what they're doing and where they're at with their stage of development is the right place for them. So, there will be times in everyone's development where they sort of go to and fro, and they might pull back a little bit at times, depending on where they are in their own personal environment, whether they're working or raising children, and therefore they sort of pull back a little bit just to concentrate on that sort of stuff. Or when they're more freer and more able to give of themselves, they will then extend themselves a little bit more. And I'm in a very lucky position that I can extend myself and I can work beyond that need of bringing a stable income in, because this sort of stuff is never stable, and also having to raise children. So I'm in a lucky position where I can sort of play at this point in time. So it's been really, really good. The development of actually sitting in ghost tours and really getting into that focused point of being able to concentrate for a number of days a week, and being able to give time, precious time, to doing that is of the utmost importance when you're trying to develop your psychic skills and your mediumship.
And I remember back in the day when I had my centre, the Australian College of Mediumship, I know very specifically my guides asked me to take my classes on a ghost tour, and it was really the whole point and purpose of it was to get their mediumship out of the classroom and into an environment that was going to provide something that would stretch their mediumship. So I'm a big fan of the fact that mediums and people who are working on their psychic ability have the experience of going and connecting in haunted locations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I know what, not just me, but what other people or my students have learned over the years. But I still know it's one of those things that people often have a little bit of fear around. So what would you say to those who are a little bit fearful, a little bit scared? Because people like you and me, I know I have a high tolerance of scary things, I guess, and often forget that what we do every day is really scary and spooky to some people. So what would you say to those that have a little bit of fear around going on their first ghost tour, for example?
Well, that's very true, Kerry. You're saying very, very true words. We take for granted just how scared people can be going on a ghost tour and having that sort of experience for the very first time. We are used to it, and some people that come on tours are also fed a whole lot of stuff that they might see from TV, and therefore think that that's the way it's going to be on a ghost tour, when in actual fact it's not. So one of the things they need to do is find a group or a ghost tour provider that is welcoming of mediums and psychics and understands that this is part of their development quest. Also to be able to find a group where those people can actually say, hey, look, I'm a practicing psychic or a medium. I want to go on this tour to help me learn how to deal with different types of energies. could you give me a hand, or, you know, if I can ask you questions along the way, would you be open to help me? So finding a group that can mentor or at least provide the environment where mediums feel safe and secure to say what they're feeling and seeing and have it validated. Validation is a really important thing when you're learning to be a psychic and a medium, because you want that voice. You want someone to say, yes, you're right. You know, other people have felt this, or yes, you're picking up on an energy that other people have felt here. So it is really, really important to promote that person's ability and to be able to give them a feeling of safety and security as well, if they feel that they've gone a little bit too far, or that they're feeling a little bit pressured with what they're doing, or they may have come across a energy that they don't feel comfortable with. So having people who can do all of that and who are welcoming is really, really important.
And even you make a really good point there about just letting the tour operator know, you know, and asking for that help. And from your perspective, if you know who you've got in your group, then you can, if anything untoward happens, it's just easier for you to step in and resolve it, you know, if you're a little prepared, you know.
That's correct. We welcome psychics and mediums and those wanting to look at their gifts. We always ask at the beginning of our tours, is there anyone here who feels that they are sensitive or a little bit psychic? We want your input. We want you to be a vocal part of our tour and tell us what you're feeling, hearing and seeing, because that makes the tour more exciting. And again, it is this validation that these people are really crying out for.
Oh, I would agree with you, because I know, like, when I did run tours, mine were more of that kind of interactive style, not just a history walking tour. It was, you know, helping people make that connection and having their own experience, which does make the tour more exciting. And I wanted to have this chat because I know I'm coming up to Newcastle on Saturday and hanging out with you for a little while.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, so we're going to Miss Porter's house. So what sort of things can we expect there?
Oh, well, I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
You're going to have to discover. Other than, I will tell you that the house. Oh, look, I can tell you anything that you'll find online. So Miss Porter's house is a terrace house that sits in Newcastle West. It has been owned by the Porter family, or it was owned by the Porter family since it was built. It is well and truly over 100 years old. It has everything that actually belonged to the Porter family, or to the two ladies that lived there into their late years, still intact in the house. So they call it a house museum, because the original owners have left all of their property in the house, and that goes down to the ladies' frilly things, as in their underwear, their hairbrushes. There are even some false teeth somewhere that we haven't found yet, but I'm sure we will. We haven't looked that hard. And all of those bits and pieces are still intact in the house. So it really gives people an opportunity to have a sensory experience in the home, where they can actually use, you know, their hands to feel and sense the bed linen, and, you know, look at the photographs and really get into the vibe of what it would have been like to live in a house in Newcastle in the early 1900s.
Wow, I'm getting all goosebumpy as we're talking about it. So I'm looking forward to it, and I am sort of planning, I guess, to sort of do some live work around it for people on my page and stuff. So tell us.
We welcome that.
Yeah, cool. So tell us a little bit about the table tipping that you get into in the seance parlour.
Okay, well, I blame my absolute obsession now with table tipping and glass dowsing on a business partner here, and my new business partner, Ms. Anne Rekovich from Oz Paratech, because she was the one that led me down that deep, dark pathway. And it is just such a magnificent opportunity for myself and for those guests that come into our seance parlour to have a hands-on experience in what physical mediumship is all about. And of course, table tipping and glass dowsing goes back to the seance era, when we're looking at the mid-1800s, 1850s and onwards, when this was a way of connecting with loved ones that had passed over. So people would sit around a table, a small table, usually a wine table, in the late evening after they'd had their, late meal. They may have had a few sherries or brandies, and then it was time really to talk to Uncle Arthur or Auntie Mabel that had passed over, and the family wanted to connect. So this was in part entertainment, but also in part a way of connecting with the spirit world. And in the 1800s, there was a great affirmation from all communities. The spirit world was part and parcel of everyday life. So Queen Victoria actually started the craze really in England. And if we go back into the history of the spiritualist movement, it all actually started in America with the Fox sisters. So once the word sort of got out that this was a possibility, everyone would sit down in their parlours and give it a go. Now, sometimes the connection took a very long time. Sometimes it was immediate. Sometimes there was the use of a psychic or a medium at the parlour table. And if we think of the 1800s as a time when there was no TV to show you how to do it, there was no Dr. Google to be able to Google the methodologies of this, it's amazing how word got around and how many people actually got into this. So it was absolutely the craze of the mid-1800s. So we now recreate this in our seance parlour, and Anne is the officiator of the seance parlour here in Newcastle, and we do invite people to come to a small sitting of a seance. We don't include more than 5 people at a time, and it is an interactive experience where we can show people how spirit can actually move things physically so that we can see that happening, but also we can connect and get answers and direct conversation with spirit. And
this is pretty much you're doing this with the people's loved ones that are there.
Yes. So we can't control who comes in. We ask people when they sit down to think of the loved ones they would like to speak to, but not always do those loved ones come through. It is really a matter of who has the greatest energy or who has the most important bit of information to tell. So sometimes we will get someone who steps in for a loved one and who will start the conversation, and we can quite often work out that that is not the person that is supposed to be speaking. They have just stepped forward because the person that wants to be there may be a little bit scared of being in there because they might cause too much emotional angst for the person on our side. So sometimes we have an intermediary. Sometimes people can't spell or read properly, so we have to ask one of our spirit team to come in and be the interpreter. And sometimes you might just happen to get an old classmate that you are searching your memory banks for and going, who the hell is this? Oh, gosh, I went to school with them 30 years ago. Or sometimes you might get someone who comes through who is desperate to say, I'm sorry. And we find that the person at our table does not want to talk to them.
Yeah, and look, even the intermediary situation that happens with me and my mediumship. Even sometimes it's my energy wouldn't gel with the loved one that someone's looking for, so they opt for a family spokesperson so they can actually make the communication happen in some way. So, yeah, exactly. So, okay, well, that sounds really exciting. So if people wanted to get in contact with you, if they wanted to go on one of your tours, because I know you've got tours happening all the time, and you actually have tours pretty much not just in Newcastle. I know you have them in Tasmania, Norfolk Island. You have them all over the place, Renata. So where can people go to find you if they want to get in contact, if they want to attend a seance parlour, if they want to look up your tours?
So the best place to contact me is via our Facebook page, because that is the one we update daily. So we do have a web page at Newcastle Ghost Tours, but our Facebook page, which is the same name, Newcastle Ghost Tours, has our daily updates, and you can message me there, or you can email me at info@newcastleghosttours.com.au. And I'll get all of those messages, and I can certainly get back to people if they want to attend the seance parlour, if they want to do one of our tours locally here, or if they want to come to Norfolk Island, which we're going to in August. And we have massive things planned for that 3 days. We're going to be over there. They can certainly contact us.
Yeah, and is there anything else that you want people to know about? Is there anything that you wanted to share or say?
Other than we are extremely busy and we love every single second of it, even though at this very moment in time we are exhausted because we've had 2 very, very long days doing some filming work and doing some exploration of spirits that we haven't had that much contact with. So it's sort of been new territory. We are very open to a whole lot of questions from people, guidance in any way. As we mentioned earlier on here, Kerry, if people want to come on our tour to have an experience where they can stretch their psychic muscles, let us know, and we welcome those people along, especially in our venues that we go to on a continual basis, like Maitland Jail, which is a really good, insightful place where you can really feel a whole lot of different energies coming through and work out, you know, where you stand with that and where sort of your level of spookiness or I can't stand the spookiness lies. So we can help, you know, we can help with that anxiety level.
Yeah, it sounds great. And so I'm highly recommending everyone should at some point put Renata and her tours and go visit her, check her out. So as you know, I'm going to be heading up there on the weekend. So we'll have more chats. And thanks for joining us. Renata, go get your coffee.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for the opportunity. And thank you, everyone that's listening. So thank you so much, Kerry, and I will see you on Saturday.
All right. God bless. See you.
Thank you. Bye.